up, guys?
Howdy, brothers.
Welcome back to another very special episode of Whiskey and Water.
This episode, we're not even going to call you guys the brothers this episode.
We're going to call you the
sisters. Because we had on Scout and Mady from Okay Sis Podcast, and they were absolutely incredible.
They are amazing. Like, I feel like we are sisters with them
We
now.
are sisters.
Like, literally. But they have their podcast called Okay Sis. It's super successful. They've grown it within the past 2.5 years. And they're just awesome. They're sisters. They get along great. They balance each other out. And
they're very, very whiskey and water.
Oh my God. We could not relate more. And this was our first podcast swap too.
Yeah,
which we're hoping to do more of because they gave us that tip.
Exactly. But also, if you guys want to listen to us on their podcast, that's out today as well. So you can go find that on Okay Sis Podcast, found everywhere that you can podcast.
Yeah. And it's a very different conversation. Like, they literally tell me how we go into the Zoom call and they're right away straight recording. Like, we just hopped right into it. I kind of knew because I saw the recording button. Just had no idea.
For like the first at least like 6 or 7 minutes,
said something.
We were just talking shit, and
like,
then Olivia's like, "Are we recording?" And they're like, "Yeah."
Did we start your podcast? And they're like, "Oh yeah, we've been going for like." But we just hopped right into it. Like, we went into the Zoom and we just really hit it off right off the bat. So
luckily,
definitely, yeah, right. Go listen to their episode with us on it. It's definitely way more casual, way more chit chatty than we typically are. And yeah, go give it a listen.
Yes. And before we get into it, we do want to thank our show sponsors.
Celsius.
Starting with Celsius. You guys know the fucking vibes.
We both are on our Fuji apple pear grind today.
Our Fuji apple pear shit. You guys already know it's healthy energy, accelerates metabolism, and it burns fucking body fat.
And there is no high fructose corn syrup, no aspartame, no preservatives, no artificial colors or flavors.
It's also made with 7 essential vitamins, guys. It has vitamin C, niacin, B6, B12, biotin, all of the goodness that your body needs to thrive.
Not gonna lie, I made myself a coffee this morning. I took 2 sips of it, and then I didn't drink it. I left it at home and I grabbed a Celsius. True story.
No lies around here, baby.
You can't make it up.
Can't make this shit up. I didn't see this bitch with a coffee today.
The link is in our description. Go check them out.
Hell yeah, brother.
And we also want to talk about Fitness Realm, which you guys already know the deal. We've talked about them before.
I'm trying to build my dump truck. It's dump truck season. It's fatty season. And you guys know that Fitness Realm is where I'm going for all of the fitness related inquiries.
Yeah, so they have articles, they have products, they have vetted all of the things that they have within the actual website, which is really nice. Like we've mentioned before, you don't have to go looking through reviews and trying to find the best product. It's literally just a one-stop shop. You have everything you need right there.
Hell yeah, brother.
Yeah, so go check out Fitness Realm, link in our description.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I'm excited for you guys to listen to this episode. I mean, we talked for literally 2 hours because first we were on theirs, then they were on ours.
Oh, yeah. We have been speaking into these mics
for a long time.
My vocal cords haven't been this fried in
I know. I need to go use that thing what the singers do, the humidifier. I'm like, oh.
I thought you were.
What?
I thought that was gonna go sexual.
I'm sorry. That was kind of a weird gesture.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Come on now. This is a new whiskey and water.
Yes.
Okay, Liv.
I just want to say we're in season 7, baby.
Season 7.
We're out here.
Who would have thunk?
We are out here, and honestly, after our conversation with the gals today, with the sisters, I feel so re-inspired, even by our podcast and the community we've built and the conversations that we've had on this show.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like the growth that you guys have experienced with us from day fucking 1, where we were just like shooting the shit and just being crazy all the time.
Yeah.
Like, and now we're refined young women.
We are professionals.
We are entrepreneurs. It's just been crazy. And we just wanted to thank you guys for following along this journey and being our brothers/sisters.
Yeah. And this is going to be a really fun episode for you guys. We get all into like working with family, working with a sibling in particular, kind of navigating friendship or family relationship and then turning it into a partnership, which is really interesting. We get into that. We really talk a lot about podcasting and just like how it's been so great and how these conversations can be so sacred.
And also, if you've ever struggled like if you like, we know a lot of you guys are like aspiring influencers, and you guys have had difficulty like niching down. We talk about just like being a multifaceted human, and you know, kind of a little bit of like tips and advice for like finding a niche, or, you know, not niching down super specifically,
or just finding the balance between the two.
Yeah,
because
exactly.
I feel like that's a really common struggle right now.
Yeah.
Also, if any of you guys are new here, if you're sisters
from the Okay Sis,
we just want to do a brief introduction. I'm Olivia.
And I am Jessica.
And we are influencers, models, content creators, business owners, and this is our show where we talk about female entrepreneurship and women in business.
Hell yeah, brother.
And yeah, we like to keep things light and fun, but still offer value. We were like very personal development and like kind of comedy related. And now we have switched into more of this like entrepreneurial mindset. And that is the tea on our show.
Yeah, but before we get into it, we're going to do a little bit of a catch up because we feel like we haven't like caught up with you guys in a minute. So we just want to give you a little life update.
Yeah, we used to, before we rebranded into being businesswomen, we would do literally like a 30-minute catch up segment. And we
always said it would be shorter, but it just ended up being 30 minutes.
You know, it happens. But so then we ditched that once we rebranded. And now I'm starting to feel like
we miss it.
I want to let you guys know like what's happening in our lives and the updates, and just have that time, like that talk.
I have tea for the brothers.
Oh God,
the brothers don't know this tea.
Okay, spill it.
Brothers, your girl's back on her single girl shit. Also, a lot of my friends listen to this as well, so like you guys are gonna be like, what the fuck, because we haven't like, you know, really spoken about it or announced it, but we are still really, really great friends. We just felt like this was the direction that life was leading us in at this time. That's not to say that, you know, something won't transpire maybe after medical school, because that shit is a bitch.
Yeah, it do be a bitch.
It do be a relationship killer.
Or do be a cock block.
So I just wanted to give you guys that life update.
Yes.
We're still great. We're still good friends, still talking frequently, but we have decided to part ways.
You love a healthy breakup.
Really?
You love to see it.
Truly.
Yeah.
And you know, like we were friends for such a long time before that, like it really only feels natural to go about it this way.
Good.
A lot of love.
Happy for you.
Thanks, brother.
Thriving. And now I'm vicariously living through her.
On my single girl shit, baby.
Okay. Regardless, what's new in my life? Well,
Antigua.
we just came back from Antigua. We were there with Hodges Bay, Antigua. Literally stunning resort. Had the best experience ever. We are now friends with the owners, and they want us to come back whenever. So
honestly, a dream come true.
Catch us back in Antigua doing wellness retreats and bringing mood clients there and just doing all the things.
Yes, and it was like a work and play trip. It was a lot of work, and we kind of took a lesson from that because we realized that we were kind of like overworking ourselves and not enjoying ourselves whatsoever for the first week. And then we ended up extending our trip like by a few days because we were like, we want to like enjoy it.
Yeah, we ended up extending it twice because they were offering and we weren't going to turn it down. But also, like we were just talking before we sat down to record, like we definitely learned a lesson because I think we were just so excited to like bring mood clients there and shoot all of our own personal content. But when I tell you guys, we were exhausted,
like burnt out.
And I know, like, I feel like people think like creating content can be like an easy just snap a pic and go, but there's so much more that goes into it, especially when you're taking 10 photos a day in different outfits and doing outfit changes. It was
10 photos taking 100 photos a day.
Well, no, I'm saying like getting 10 separate Instagram posts in different outfits.
Definitely. And just like directing someone, styling someone.
Instagram is a curated like
little highlight reel.
It's so funny because I kept saying, I'm like, it's so funny that like in all of these pictures, I look like I'm wearing these outfits around the resorts when in reality, I'm wearing the robe. Literally
just wearing
the robe and slippers.
The robe and slippers.
The entire resort. But according to my Instagram, you would think I was popping off.
You were just a shining star of the resort. Who is she?
Yeah.
A celebrity. Oh my fucking God.
Oh, how could we not?
How could we forget?
I cannot believe we almost forgot.
I cannot. Brothers.
Okay, not everyone knows who she is though, because even she was like, I mean, I don't know. I think everyone knows who she is.
Okay. I mean, if you guys are around our same age, around our same interests, I hope you know who she is. While in Antigua,
we're literally friends with Keke Palmer. And she's like amazing.
Bitch, what? Okay.
Jess,
so let's
give
give you the rundown, right?
God.
Day one. when she arrives, we're like, oh my God, is that fucking Keke Palmer at the resort?
That's lit.
We're like, that's dope. She's staying at our resort. Like, what? Like, whatever.
Who are we?
And then the resort's pretty intimate. So it's like you are going to like
Run
be in
into
the same
anyone
vicinities
there.
as the other people. It's not like you're super spread out. So it's like even on the first day, she laid in like the pool chair next to me and I was shitting myself. And then that night at dinner, she complimented my hair.
And she lost her shit.
We all lost our shit. Come on. You were freaking the fuck out. I was just
I
trying
was
to make me
freaking
have
out
like a
for
fan.
you.
Yeah, naturally. And so whatever. So this is just like the progression of our friendship. And then and then so we like slowly, you know, had more conversations, and then she was
not
in town.
To mention she's literally the sweetest,
the nicest human
person ever. Like we left it alone. Like
yeah,
we're not
we
trying
weren't
to
gonna
be,
like yeah.
we're like minding our own business, doing our own thing, and she literally like went out of her way to talk to us, to invite us out on the boat day, and we were like,
so she was doing a boat day with her boyfriend for his birthday and invited us out, like told the owner like, oh, if you want to invite like the influencers, whatever, like, you know, have them come, we want to party.
Say less, Keke, we will
I
be
was
there.
like, abso-fucking-lutely.
And
I brought my camera because you never know what's gonna happen. And I fucking shot Keke Palmer and her boyfriend.
One thing led to another, and we're really out here shooting celebrities. It's
and
no big deal.
Not to mention, she posted the photos and tagged me.
I mean,
a fucking dream.
A dream.
A fucking dream. Like what? Who the fuck am I?
Our childhood hero. Imagine.
True Jackson. Double Dutch star.
Cinderella.
Wow.
A Hustlers.
A queen.
Anyways, that was like the highlight of our career thus far.
Yeah. We're doing great over here.
It was really cool, and just a great experience, great networking, great content, great everything. But yeah, that's it. I'm having a hard time adjusting back to reality, not going to lie to you. But
wasn't fun.
We are figuring it out as we go. I don't want to hold you guys any longer.
I'm moving to Antigua. Okay, guys, we really hope you love this episode. If you guys have enjoyed it thus far, please take a screenshot. Please share with a friend that you think would enjoy this. Share it on your Instagram stories. Tag us. Tag Okay Sis. We love to see that you guys are listening and what you guys think. It literally means the world to us.
The absolute world. And if you're feeling generous, leave us a review and 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
Hell yeah, brothers and sisters.
We will see you on the other side.
All right, guys, and we are live with Scout and Mady from Okay Sis Podcast.
Hello, thank you for having us.
Oh, we are so excited to talk to you. I mean, we're just fresh off of a pod swap.
Yes.
So I already feel like I know you two. I am so excited.
This is great. I think might be our first pod swap, right? Have we been on another ones and then had them
I don't think we've like had them like done both.
You're popping our pod swap cherry.
We're super comfy in here right now. Okay, so for our audience who doesn't know you guys, hopefully they do, but if they don't, tell our audience a little bit about you guys. We know that you guys are sisters, which we find super interesting. But give us a little bit of a rundown.
Yeah.
Scout. Oh!
I'm on fucking mute. How many times do we have to do this? When Luna barks and I'm on mute, you go.
You didn't say you were on mute.
God, this is all on the record. We are airing this.
Yeah. This literally happens every time.
Okay. I will do the elevator pitch. Hello, my name is Mads, and Scout is my older sister. She's the wiser, more introspective one. I am the younger, more rambunctious one, which I think is why we balance each other out so well, and why we
Whiskey
resonate
and water,
so much
baby.
with. Exactly. Why we resonate so much with your podcast name. We started Okay Sis about 2.5 years ago. And honestly, we did it to deepen our relationship as sisters and connect with some of our girl crushes and dream women. And, you know, we started off, honestly, kind of like you guys, talking about anything and everything under the sun. So we'll get into like the whole niche topic because I have a lot of thoughts on that.
Yes.
But honestly, you know, we love female entrepreneurship. We love sisterhood. We love growing an audience. I think something that was an ancillary benefit to creating the podcast is that we grew this insane community that both of us have never been influencers or had an audience before this. Like, we're 2 Jewish girls from Southern California, and you know, having people rally up behind us and listen week after week, it has been probably one of the most fulfilling hearts about content creation and about this experience. And I think it led us both to understand how much leadership and community building actually means to us. And I think people, when they get into podcasting, that's a skill set that people aren't either prepared to take on or don't know how to. And it's kind of like a surprise thing that happens. So to me, that's been one of the most exciting elements to Okay Sis.
And the fact that you get to be with me like all the time, and that you love me so much, and that I provide such on-demand advice for your entire life at any moment of any second of any day.
Yeah.
What is the age difference here?
So I am 29 years old. This is Scout, and Mads is 26. She's 3 years younger than me.
Okay. I feel like that's a healthy age. But you guys, did you fight a lot when you were younger? Because I feel like 3 years is definitely fighting a lot.
We didn't really fight when we were younger so much. I think that we had enough of a gap between us that we were close, but not so close. So our friend groups didn't kind of overlap. I think when you get to the 1 to 2 year difference, the friend groups overlap. So, you know, she was a freshman in high school when I was a senior. However, I think that our fights, or our dynamic of fighting, really came because I felt at times quite maternal over Mads. And so I would get upset with her. You know how your parent disciplines their child for acting like a brat? Like that was me. I was upset at her for being a brat when she was younger. And so that's really where the fighting happened. We never really had, I don't believe, Mads, sisterly bicker so much.
Well, I would beat you up sometimes because I'm very strong. So, and
you mean physically, and she physically. Yeah, so it's very fun.
Oh my God, the jabs.
But also I would steal all her clothes. I feel like that's a typical sister relationship.
That's what I was thinking. Like, you're definitely.
She did everything I did.
Yeah. At that age, you're definitely like sneaking in her closet and like, you know, not telling her about clothes that you're stealing and things like that. But I love that you guys are sisters and that you're in this business together. And we're going to get into a bunch of things, but I guess we can dive into that first. Like, working with family is such a different dynamic than working with someone who I think isn't blood related. And I feel like it definitely probably comes with its pros and its cons. Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sure you guys will speak more about this, but you probably feel like you can be totally like blunt with each other and like transparent and honest, but maybe to a fault. I don't know. I'm curious to know.
There's no filter.
Yeah, I'm curious to know your guys' experience with growing this podcast and doing it as sisters.
It's actually interesting because on your podcast, we were talking a little bit, or I said that I can't be in a partnership with someone when it comes to a business except with Mads. And then the question at hand here is, what is it like going into business with family? And I think that it's very specific based on the relationship, not like the, you know, sister to sister or mother to daughter or father to son, father to daughter. You know, I think that when you go into family relationship with a parent, there's an inherent power dynamic and power play that's already set up and rooted in the way you guys relate to one another.
Very true.
But with me and Mads as sisters, yes, there is aspects, since I am older than her, that I feel responsible for her in many ways, that I feel very maternal. But at the core, we're just kind of built-in best friends. So we have a very equal power play field, if you want to call it that. But there's also, as Mads always says, we just cut through the fat so fast. Like, we don't tiptoe around the other. We say what we mean, and we get shit done so much faster because we are able to just kind of communicate very, very, very openly.
I love that. And I feel like that's kind of like the pro of like Olivia and I, is that like through the podcast and starting Mood together, like the podcast allowed us to really just cut through all the fat, like you said. And we've definitely gotten to that point where we're more like sisters than we are like best friends. And sometimes that is like to a fault too, because we're like, we'll like look at each other and be like, I can't believe we're best friends, because like it does not feel like that.
Like we forget that we're actually friends. Yeah. We're like, oh wait, yeah, like you're my friend. Yeah. You're not my business partner.
She'll like make me laugh and I'm like, damn, you're kind of funny.
No, yeah, it's bad.
It's so true. I mean, Scout and I, and we even talked about this on our, when you guys came on our podcast, but the podcast to us, like we didn't start treating it like a business until probably a couple months ago. And as Scout eloquently says, she is a bitch in the place. So she is a very different worker than I am. And we have very different work ethics and approaches to business and work. And so, yes, we are very blunt with one another, but kind of like coming back to the overarching goal and intention, both of us are looking out for the best for this project and for the podcast. And honestly, the only time we've really like clashed because of the podcast has been these past couple months because of the level of, there's just some more professionalism or there's a more care to it when you're starting to think about things like monetization and growth, and it brings a whole nother layer to the project that was just started as, a fun thing to talk to your sister once a week.
So I think that's something that people don't really point out so much, and I mean this in a very loving way towards Mads, is that starting a podcast, starting a YouTube channel, starting an Instagram, content creation isn't exactly entrepreneurship. It's like being a creative director, right? So creating things like a podcast is a much more creative thing. When it becomes entrepreneurship is when you add money to the mix. So that's what makes it entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So I run my own agency for 2 years. It's a multiple six-figure agency. I've done a lot of entrepreneurial things, and I put on a different hat when money's involved, because then it's a lot more serious for me. It's a lot more operational for me. There's less freedom, I guess. Mm-hmm. When you're creating a podcast, you can talk about all sorts of things and delve into things, etc. But when it comes to business, I get really a lot more serious, and Mads is just becoming an entrepreneur and literally has the most genius app in the world. But as someone who's been on the revenue side of things, when that stuff starts coming into play, it gets a lot more serious, because when the money runs out, and then it's a hobby again. So I think that it's interesting because people have asked us, what is it like to do business together? And we haven't really been doing business together. We've been building something together. And I think there's a difference between those two. And now we're doing more business because we're paying for things and getting paid for ads and managing money and opened an LLC. And so when that happens, I put on a lot more of a bulldog kind of approach. I'm just a little bit more of a serious kind of person when it comes to managing money. And so I think that as we were talking about on your podcast, you said, the Instagram's all fun and games until you realize how to run it and make money off of it. So it's when you add in that operational point that's supposed to essentially support a revenue stream, talks about where should money be allocated, starts being happened, and what is the burn rate, and what's your P&L, and what can we expect? What does revenue look like coming in on a month-to-month basis? And that's where I think I have trouble being in partnership with, because I'm just so strong and clear-headed with that I stifle the creativity in Mads, because I come in with like the reality business punch at the bottom, and then I say it in a mean way.
Yeah, I mean, you're true in saying that it's such a different approach. I mean, the way you approach a hobby is so different than how you're going to approach a business. So that in between state, navigating that space where it's like you started as a hobby and now it's turning into a business, that's a really hard space to navigate, especially, and then you add a partner on top of it, and you guys, you're dealing with two different personalities and two different sets of strengths and weaknesses, and like we're just such complex beings with all of our experiences in our past and trying to learn communication. Like there's a lot going on in there to deal with, but it sounds like you guys have like really grown the show, which I'm interested in knowing more about, because us having a podcast ourselves, it's been a struggle. It's tough. And especially I think not having like an algorithm for podcasts makes it tough too, because it makes it harder for people to find your show if they don't already know you as a person. But did you want to touch on anything else like family related or them working together as sisters before we move on?
I'm curious if you guys like kind of always understood your strengths and your weaknesses, and like how those would mesh together in, business or building, whatever it may be, or if that was something that you guys kind of had to like
learn along the way.
Yeah. And if you guys do know what those are, and how you guys can kind of like benefit each other in that way.
Yeah. So honestly, it was something we learned along the way. We started this podcast in a week, and honestly, I would have never, ever done something like this. I'm so happy that Scout pushed me to do it. I'm much more of a planner. I am a person that really analyzes things from like every single angle and makes sure I'm like fully prepared. So doing this and creating this project was completely out of my comfort zone, and I'm so happy that we did it in the way that we did, because I don't know if I would have ever said yes to it. And additionally, I've now adopted that type of mentality. I mean, I've found a balance where I can like really prepare and feel comfortable, but then also like start fast before I can like have an opportunity to back out.
And she's fucking killing it, by the way. She's fucking killing it. Like, I think that the podcast catapulted Mads to a level that I've never seen her play in. She's just going after what she wants. She's fucking showing up. She's leaving self-doubt at the door. She's not overanalyzing. She's acting before thinking. She's not afraid what people think of her. She's jumping into business. She's becoming this incredible entrepreneur, and it's fucking rad to see.
Thank God that this is recorded, because
I sent you a voice note. I sent you a voice note crying in the car because I had a divine download that I was giving you an award on stage for all of your accomplishments. And I said, someone will see this in you one day, but I want to let you know that I saw it first on my drive to get my vaccine shot.
Scout's crying. Scout.
Guys, these are real tears.
Aw. That's so sweet.
I'm so happy we're like here to like
experience
have this moment with you guys.
This divine download.
Are we sisters now too?
Divine download. Thank you, Scout.
Wow.
I will keep this in my. I need this as like my ringtone and as my like hype woman.
Your alarm clock.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think there's something in Scout where she has a very go-getter personality, and she's the type of person that when something is on her mind and she's set to it, like she literally will jump off a cliff and be like, okay, well, if there's a parachute, there's a parachute, whatever, right. Fuck it. Like, I am so like, make sure that parachute is strapped. So, you know, it was just completely out of my comfort zone. But I think we did not talk about like allocating responsibilities. It just like kind of fell on Scout to do the editing. I kind of did all the social, and I feel much more creative in that sense. And I think it just kind of worked the way that it did, and it kind of fell into it. We do not recommend this method. Everyone should definitely like have an operating agreement, which we still need to do since we just opened an LLC. But everyone should understand their responsibilities when starting a podcast and really feeling, understand what your role in it is. And yeah, we had to learn the hard way. There are some things that, bug the shit out of me about Scout, of course. I mean, I know you just listed a whole laundry list of what you love about me, but I guess I'll just kind of go in the other way.
While we're here, might as well.
One day, Scout, posted all these TikToks in a row that didn't make any sense. Was not a trend, was nothing. Was just nothing. And I was like, what are you doing?
I thought, do you know that when I posted those, I said, my sister is going to be so proud that I made the effort on TikTok.
Oh, that's funny. How you got to know her.
I got an angry voice note that was 5 minutes long saying that I'm banned from TikTok.
Oh,
see, but that just goes to show.
It's very curated. It has a very specific strategy that I've developed.
TikTok is not supposed to be curated. I thought you were supposed to post a lot. I thought people wanted to watch me dancing to Usher and LL Cool J and shit.
Nope.
Oh my goodness.
Nope.
But that is the stuff that will randomly go viral. But yes, we digress.
This is true. But anyway, so yeah, there's a rhythm that we have created for one another, and I think we both are just very clear now on exactly what needs to happen to make it operate. And as we introduce new segments and new things and extensions of the brand, I think we're treating it not just, the podcast is the hub of it all, but we have started, to expand in this, doing virtual events, having a merch line, just doing Clubhouse talks. We have just always been so excited to expand this and make sure that our community has so many more touch points other than just the podcast.
Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I love that you mentioned the word rhythm, because I really resonate with that. Like once you do have to find like the groove in a partnership, at least. I mean, in everything in life, but especially a partnership, there is definitely a rhythm, and like you kind of have to go through the rough part of it and get through, like we mentioned on your guys' podcast, like I feel like every argument we've had and have communicated our way out of it has made us better partners.
100%.
Like you kind of have to have those disagreements. You have to have that conflict in order to learn and evolve and like resolve it together and move forward and do, move differently about things, and just be honest with each other and say, okay, I didn't like when you did that and it made me feel this way. How else are you supposed to learn? You have to have that conflict.
Yeah. And even the other day you were like, oh, because when we first started Mood, we did do some like, okay, these are your responsibilities, these are my responsibilities.
Like we delegated tasks for each other.
And then she was like, oh, I like stumbled across that the other day and I realized we've like been doing it without even like
trying,
without like
without referencing those lists that we made.
And that's literally just because we've like just learned each other at this point, and we know what our strengths are and we know what our weaknesses are, and even if they're not maybe a strength or a weakness, but maybe it's something that like really drains us to do, but
the other one doesn't mind.
Exactly. And having the assistant, our assistant Kennedy, has definitely been a game changer for that, because especially in a business, like there's shit that you do not want to do, like that neither of you are going to want to handle, that's going to, stress you out. And so putting all of those things on your assistant,
paying someone to do it for their time,
yes, has definitely just been like a game changer for our partnership, our friendship, because it's just allowed us to enjoy what we do so much more.
Yeah.
I just hired an assistant for Scout's agency for me.
Nice.
And it is life-changing. Like the amount that I was in my email just scheduling calls with prospective
For what? How does that help your business? It has to get done, but how is it growing your business? It's not.
I was exhausted at the end of the day, not from my workload, but just from this task that was keeping me from doing the things I really had to do, which is when I got on a call with the prospective client, showing up with really good energy. And so it's a game changer. It is a game changer.
Yeah.
And it's an investment, like not, and I do recognize that that's like a huge privilege, but you do have to invest into yourself and kind of make that leap, because it's not easy to like be like, oh shit, I'm going to start, it's your first like hire. It was like our first person that we've ever hired. And so definitely like taking, trusting that person with our time and our money. And, like it was definitely a learning curve, but so glad that we did it.
Yeah, so glad. I'm curious to know you guys and like how you are now in your relationship, your partnership and business, and how you navigate disagreements, and if it ever comes to a point where you guys simply just agree to disagree. Because even there's we go through that too, where it's like, all right, it's okay that we don't see eye to eye on this. It's just like we might have different values or about something, not like huge, but if it's a small thing, it's just like, oh, you think that's best?
A preference.
I think this is best.
Yeah.
Exactly. It could be like down to a preference, and we're just like, okay, agree to disagree. Like we don't have to agree on everything.
Like sometimes that little shit doesn't matter.
It just literally doesn't matter.
It could be like an Instagram post, and she's like, well, I think it should look like this, and we're just like, okay.
We're like, this doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah. So how do you guys kind of navigate that space?
So a lot of voice notes. We send a lot of voice notes back and forth, just because it's like the best way to, I think, show like an inflection in your voice and
totally
the person, and without like getting on a call. I guess it's just like, hey, this is how I'm feeling, and I'm kind of like downloading everything onto you, and you can see it. But I think both of us, we really respect one another's opinion and feelings, and honestly, we validate each other. So anything that the other is feeling, if it's really upsetting the other, we have to recognize that and shift. I think there has only been one time where we've like really disagreed on something, but I was pretty adamant about it. So it's like, if one of us is like very adamant, I'll tell you later.
She's like, spill the tea.
I don't remember.
Okay. But like, if one of us is very adamant about it and is just like, this, I'm putting my foot down, that's it. Like, and I think this also goes with a lot of like, we get a lot of people reaching out to come on the podcast as guests, and maybe sometimes, you know, one of them looks cool to the other, but it just doesn't resonate. You know, we're always thinking about the brand itself, but like if someone comes on the podcast and like only one of us is interested in them, it's not going to make for a fruitful conversation.
Right.
And so we just make sure that both of us feel very invested in this guest and feel like it can give off value to our listeners.
Mm-hmm. We're also so different, me and Mads. So Mads is so much more in tune with more of the pop culture, more of TikTok, certain, I don't even want to say influencers necessarily, but she's just so much more on the pulse of trends, etc. Yeah. And she's got a lot more of a lifestyle, trend forecasting, whatever kind of site situation. So there are women that come on, and it sometimes is an episode where this is more for Mads, right? Yeah. And then there are people that come on that are more for me. I'm a lot more spiritual. I really focus on mental health. And so it's interesting, and I think why Okay Sis is so beautiful, even though sometimes I have to grapple with it, is that we are so different in so many ways. And so the content that we deliver sometimes is more Mads, sometimes is more Scout, and then sometimes is this beautiful medley of the both of us. And so you really get that range of different types of women, different industries and women, different types of conversation that I think is what makes Okay Sis so special, because at the bottom of it, it's how, one, we're relating to one another as sisters, but then how we also introduce one another into our worlds.
Yeah, that's so good. And also another point of that is like your audience too is like getting the best of both worlds, because they're, you know, I'm sure a lot of your audience resonates with the more mental health and then also resonates more with the pop culture. Like that's a nice sweet spot, and that's like the luxury of not being in a niche, because you can, you know, you have the freedom to, oh, you think this person is super cool but what they do is super random, fuck it, have them on. They're like, and they're interesting and they have an interesting story. So a part of me like does miss that aspect of when we were more open to just having numerologists and breakup coach and period coach and all these like random, you know, type of professionals on the show. But I think that's awesome, and I definitely think that's attributed to the success of your guys' show.
And well, it's funny because Mads and I did a Ask Me Anything on our Instagram, but separately on my personal and her personal, not on Okay Sis, on like the same day because Mads copied me. And
it'd be like that.
The questions were so different.
Wow.
Like,
that's interesting.
So different what people ask Mads and what people ask me, right? Mads, did you realize that?
No.
Oh.
I mean, duh. Like, they're going to ask you about mental health and about your bipolar disorder. Like, that's what people want to hear about, your expertise. Like, people want to know what sweatsuit I like the most. Like, that's just, you know, and I am open to answering
You're
any
here
of
to
those
deliver
questions.
the answers.
But I like, Olivia, I like what you said, that I've always been of the camp that I don't have to be chained to one topic, right? Like, I've always struggled with this just internally. Like, yes, on the podcast, I am very loud and expressive, but I am also, there's so many other sides to me, as there are to every person and every human.
Right.
And I agree, of course, niching is important in terms of growth, but for me, it just feels like suffocating. Like I have so many different layers. I have so many different sides to myself. I also am very into mental health and well-being and wellness, and you know, and I should be able to talk about those things the same way I talk about pop culture. And I also don't believe that having an interest in pop culture diminishes your intellect. I think it actually elevates it. I think you being like part of the world, understanding the world and the culture and the people around you makes you more intelligent. And so I don't know. We've talked about niches on our podcast before, because I also think that is what's almost stopped me from starting the podcast. Is I was like, oh my God, everyone says you have to have a niche, and if you don't, you'll fail. And I think it stops people from starting more than it helps them. And again, and like, if you have a niche that's amazing and you're, you know, you feel like gravitated towards this one thing, I just have never had that. Like, I've just always been multi-interested, multi-hyphenate. Like, that's just who I am.
Multifaceted.
Multifaceted. So I don't know.
You have to have a brand, Mads. I think you don't have to have a niche. You just have to have a brand, right?
Right.
So for us, it was sisters and women.
Right. And
For
that's,
you guys,
and that's
it's women in business, but you could talk to female entrepreneurs in the CBD realm, in the medical realm, in the fitness realm, and the, you know, and then there's so many subjects there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I mean, I've just like rationalized it or justified it in my mind. Maybe we just had Jessica Zweig on our book, who does all personal branding, and she has this book that she came out with called Be, and you know, she made us do our brand hologram, which is basically like you create these like 4 brand pillars, if you will. And I was like kind of scared to do that because I was like, no, we talk about everything. I don't want to, you know, narrow us down. But if you really think about it, most of your content and most of the things you talk about will be bucketed under 4 larger things. And you don't need to be like chained to, you know, this one topic. To us, it's, you know, sisterhood, it's female entrepreneurship, it's wellness, and it's pop culture. And I think that sums up Okay Sis perfectly.
Definitely. And we had really a similar experience. And even with our personal brands, like we are super aligned with that because, I mean, like, I do mushrooms with a shaman, and then I like go get fucked up on Friday night. I weight lift. I have a podcast. I have tattoos. Like, you know, like I don't really subscribe to this idea that we have to be like one thing, and I don't think I ever will.
And I don't think anyone is, though. I think it's interesting, and I'm realizing now that this is like a subject in the spotlight right now is about niches, because I feel like humans aren't niched. Like we all have multiple interests, we have multiple passions, multiple talents, and
unless
I think
you're
this
fucking
whole
boring.
He screwed me up now. I'm like, unless and the only time we like are pushing ourselves to find this niche, I'm realizing, is like in this internet world where we're trying to create a personal brand, because really that, like, even I struggled a lot with YouTube and trying to find a niche for YouTube, because all my research was like find a niche. And I'm like, there's nothing I want to commit to talking about that much for that long. And like I struggled with it a lot, and then I finally was able to wrap my head around like picking 3 topics. I'm like, okay, that feels a little better to me, because like just picking one sounds horrible. And I think everyone is trying to niche down when, like, as humans we are not niche, but to build a brand, like you kind of have to
have parameters, right?
Yeah, it has to be cohesive.
Consistency.
Cohesive.
And I get it. If
you're going to talk about, you know, saving climate change and then doing something really terrible for the climate, there's something that's not like mixing there. Right, it's not aligning, but you could, as you said, do mushrooms with a shaman and get fucked up on Friday. Do you know how many people that do that? Like that's a thing that those aren't dualities. Like you can do both of those.
They're not mutually exclusive.
They're not mutually exclusive. So I think for me, it's, instead of saying niche, I think we just have to say, what's our brand? Where are our core values? What are our interests?
And how are we consistent throughout?
And how does it tell a whole story, right?
What's
how does
like through line through the whole thing?
Yeah, how does it connect?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Olivia, we talked about the YouTube channel, and like I'm now thinking about this, and I actually did this exercise for the YouTube channel because I was like, I just want to be clear. I don't want to just go into it, you know, with my head chopped off, because I want there to be some sort of like value added. But honestly, it drilled down to, I really don't want to be so I don't want to prepare that much. Like I just want to see what happens in my day. I mean, I'm going to be doing like weekly vlogs, so it's just more so lifestyle. Like I'll take behind the scenes of Okay Sis, and I'll take behind the scenes of creating a technology company. And so it's like I have those quote unquote niches or pillars or constants, but I don't want to like plan. Like I just want to film my week, and that is what's going to go on the on the YouTube. So I think it's a really good exercise just to know if you're aligned, but I don't know that you need to really like narrow yourself into one specific topic. But yeah, you said talk about time and time again, it's going to get so aggravating.
Yeah.
For you.
And I've even seen it with other YouTubers who started when they were young, like started as a beauty YouTuber. And then I've watched their videos of them being like, YouTube started to make me depressed because I didn't care about makeup anymore. And now I don't know what to do with this huge audience that only cares about makeup, and I just don't give a shit about it anymore. So it's like, you also don't want to get to that point where you feel like, you know, you build this whole audience based on this one thing, and then all of a sudden, you know, it's not relevant to your life anymore. You're not in that season. Like,
yeah, you build your own box.
Yeah. And we've also, when we were thinking about rebranding the podcast too, it's like, well, then, okay, we're going to do business, but then what if we don't want to stay in business? And then we were like, dude, we're the bosses. We make the rules. We can literally rebrand again into whatever is relevant in our life at that point. When we start having babies, when we start buying houses, like whatever
this might be a motherhood podcast one day, baby.
Like, you know, you never know. And that's the beauty of something like a podcast, is like, you know, you're growing that audience to be invested in you as humans and your journey in life, not necessarily just this one very specific topic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Mads and I always give the advice when people start a podcast. We always say, make sure you do intros and solo episodes, because it's really important that people know who you are, so that when you do want to change, I always say people come for the guest and then stay for us. If you do want to change and you do want to grow and evolve, they're going to have a personal investment in your life, so that, you know, when Mads gets engaged one day, when I get pregnant one day, it'll be this natural kind of progression that they come with us on this journey, and therefore relate to us because they've seen the steps before. So
right.
I think that the landscape of content creation, YouTube, podcast, Instagram has changed so much from that one niche to people just want to know you. They want to know your life. Well, and I also want to know what mushrooms was like with the shaman.
Yeah. We'll get into that.
But yeah, so I mean, again, coming to the whole realization of me joining Scout on this journey, like, the thing that put me over the edge was I kind of looked at the podcast that I listened to. I listen to a ton of pop culture podcasts. I say this all the time. They're talking about the same thing. There's only a couple things they can talk about each week, because that's what pop culture is.
Yeah.
So they're all talking about the same things, but I listen to all of them because I love each of their perspectives and each of their commentary and the way they approach it. Mm-hmm. And that just made me realize, I was like, oh, wow, like, I really gravitate towards these podcasts because I love the personalities, I love the people, and the energy and the humanity they bring to these topics that I love to hear about. So
yeah, you're invested in them.
Right, exactly. So that totally rings true to me, Scout. Like, I think that's what people are coming for. They're coming for the story and for the person, and they'll stay for that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I also think a great point is that the beauty of podcasts is that it's this long form content where we have an hour to really get in depth about situations and stories. I've shared my entire story of my relationship and how I got cheated on with my fiance and broke up twice and got back together, completely raw, vulnerable, like as many details as I could possibly share. But that is the beauty of this space, is that you have the ability to connect with the audience on such a deeper level. And I think that's why there's like hardcore podcasters and like people who strictly like religiously listen to podcasts, is because that is a space you do feel so connected to other people, no matter how famous they are, no matter how many followers they have. It's like you realize, you hear their problems and their stories and their life, and you realize like we're all dealing with the same fucking shit. We're all humans. We're all dealing with relationship problems and trust issues and friendship issues. And I think like that feeling of community is so strong in podcasters, because like you said, you sit there and you just listen to someone and you feel like you're friends with them. Like you just feel like you're catching up, doing happy hour, like literally just talking.
You feel like
shit.
You're on a call like with these people.
And I think that's why podcasts like are so different from everything else. And that's why like even though we're not making a ton of money from this show, we have no regrets. We are so thankful. This is like one of the best things we've ever done because of just like that connection we've gotten with our audience, and a bunch of other reasons too, like networking and other fun stuff. But yeah, that there's just a level that you just can't replicate in any other.
You can't get on your Instagram story and connect with people like you do when you sit down on a mic and you just kind of lay it all out there for an hour.
Yeah, and I feel as if even if the four of us went for happy hour, right? I'm not even sure that our conversation for an hour would be this intentional, this focused,
right?
This
so
kind
true.
of,
So
you
true.
know, we're getting into it because we have an hour to record and we have people in mind that we want this to deliver for.
Right.
So the four of us could go to dinner and not feel disconnected on this level. Like,
yeah, that's so true.
There's a
about
level
your
of
relation-
intention.
you know, yeah, there's a level of intention that's focused, and I think that in our world we're so not focused in everything
Right.
that we do. We don't even go to lunch with our best friend and put our phone away, you know? We're on
Yeah,
our phone half the
totally.
time. So not only is the listener hearing something that's so raw, I mean, we edit a podcast, but you can't make yourself sound that great, you know,
Right.
you sound like an idiot for an hour.
Yeah.
So there's that level, but then there's also the level of connection that you have with your guests that is really unlike any other type of conversation that you would have with them if you just went for a glass of wine.
Wow, I'm like getting emotional.
Because you could
she's like, that's so beautiful because like
it's so true. Because we could talk about bags if we went out to happy. Like we could talk about, you know, very
superficial.
Not that we would, but the conversation does tend to go there. And you're so right. When you approach the conversation with a value, like, you know, value driven in mind. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you know what I mean. Just being intentional about the conversation. Imagine if every conversation you had was intentional.
Was a podcast.
Yeah.
Let's podcast our lives.
Like how much deeper the relationships in our lives would be, you know?
That's so true. Especially I like really what you said about like the phones. Like it really didn't even occur to me that like we don't touch our phones when we podcast for, you know, obvious reasons, but like it didn't occur to me like how like sacred that time is.
Oh my God. Because podcasting to me, it's the only time I am ever fully present because you have to listen to the person. You have to. And you honestly, there is no reality where you're like, wait, sorry, can you say that again? Like, oh, I wasn't listening or caring about what you said. Like you literally have to give a shit.
Imagine.
Like
I was thinking about something else.
That for Mads, I think Mads and I have seen such a progression over the last 2.5 years that yes, of course, in 2.5 years we would have changed regardless. We would have evolved, we would have whatever. But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mads, that our growth and development in the last 2.5 years has been so quickly evolved because we get on the mic and we talk about what we're going through. So we have space to very intentionally assess where we're at, assess where we are in relation to our guests, get inspiration and implement it into our lives. The entire premise of a podcast is to make everyone's lives better. You're intentional, you're focused, you're not on your phone, you're talking about valuable things, you're being inspired by other people, you're checking in with yourself where you are in the world. It's the best networking tool. It's the best self-development tool. I just don't know if there's another medium that promotes this much growth in someone and this many, I want to say sacred, but really, you know, special moments between people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, even like you guys have even been doing this like, you know, a year longer than we have, but it's almost like you get to see the progression so much too, because you can always go back to another episode and like see what you guys were discussing that day, what was prevalent in your life, in your minds, what you were bitching about, what you were, you know, what you had been achieving, whatever it may be. And I mean, like when we started this podcast, she would like come over, and we had a producer at the time who was like, you know, putting everything together for us. They would
recording on 3 different angles of cameras.
They would show up and I would be in bed hungover as fuck. And like, I could just never imagine myself in where I'm at right now showing up like that for something that I care so much about. Like I was just, you know, like I was fucking just being a dumbass 22-year-old, you know,
that was the season.
That was the season of my life, you know, but it is just interesting to be able to like reflect on where we were in our lives at that time and see how much like we've exponentially grown in such a condensed amount of time.
Yeah. Guys, this has been honestly such an amazing episode. Like I feel re-inspired about our podcast, and we already have a podcast.
I know.
So I feel like anyone not listening who doesn't have one is going to be like, that's it. I'm starting a podcast. That's it. It's happening. Oh, what I was going to say is that you guys have re-inspired me to do like, we used to do catch-ups where we would like catch each other up on our personal lives, and we stopped doing that once we went business oriented, and now I'm like, fuck it.
What are we doing?
Give the people what they want.
What are we doing?
Regardless, thank you guys so much. I'm so happy we connected. We relate to each other in so many ways.
So many parallels.
I just feel so lucky that we connected and got to have such amazing chat for literally 2 hours. If people want to find you on social media, listen to your podcast, where can they find you at?
You can find us on Instagram at Okay Sis Podcast. You can follow me at Scout Sobel, Mads at Mady Mayo. Our Instagram is linked in our Okay Sis Podcast Instagram bio. And you can listen to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, guys. Apple, Spotify, all the places. Come hang out. We have a new episode every Monday.
Love that. Same day as us. So you guys listen to them, listen to us,
back
and vice
to back
versa.
on Monday.
And that's Okay Sis, AOKAY. There's like an AY after the OK.
Yeah.
There's an AY.
For those of us who are unclear.
Yes. All right. We will see you guys next week for another episode. Have an amazing week, and we'll catch you later. Bye.